This is the tragic story of Marie Wiegand, a dedicated gardener whose life ended in a heartbreaking accident. On that fateful evening, at her home in Boca, Royale, Marie was happily tending to her garden. However, her routine task turned into a nightmare when she accidentally fell into a lake where alligators were lurking. Marie Wiegand was an 80-year-old woman who lived in the Boca Royale Golf and Country Club in South Sarasota County, Florida. She spent most of her life working in the nursing field, contributing to hospitals and medical offices before retiring in Florida. She was known for her dedication to her garden, which she meticulously maintained with her husband Edward before his passing 2 years prior to the incident. Gardening was one of her many hobbies, along with reading, swimming, baking, and practicing yoga at the Inglewood YMCA. Her property was part of a community where residents were all aware of the alligators that inhabited the nearby ponds. These reptiles would occasionally emerge from the water to bask in the sun, or be seen gliding through the water, their knobby bodies resembling floating logs. They moved from pond to pond, sometimes even crossing the road, but had never posed a direct threat to anyone. The locals knew to respect the alligators and maintain a safe distance. The couple had been residents at Boca Royale for 20 years, becoming well-known and well-liked members of the community. However, gardening in Florida can be riskier than in many other regions due to the state's unique wildlife and environmental conditions. The warm, humid climate that makes Florida's gardens lush and vibrant also provides an ideal habitat for various potentially dangerous animals, particularly alligators. Alligators are common in Florida, inhabiting nearly every body of fresh water, including lakes, ponds, and even retention basins. These reptiles are known for their stealth and can remain hidden beneath the water's surface, making them difficult to spot. When people garden near these water sources, they are at risk of unknowingly disturbing these predators. A simple activity like pulling weeds or trimming plants near the water's edge can turn deadly if someone accidentally slips or gets too close, as alligators are opportunistic hunters that may see a person as potential prey. The same happened with this grandma, Marie Wiegand. What started as a peaceful evening tending to her beloved garden by the lake quickly turned into a nightmare. On the evening of July 15th, Marie Wiegand was in her garden, pulling weeds from the grassy bank with her back turned to the lake. It was around 7:45 p.m. and the air was warm and still. The usual sounds of the neighborhood filled the air, the hum of a car rolling by, the distant noise of people mowing their lawn. Everything seemed ordinary. Meanwhile, 2 alligators floated silently in the lake just a short distance from her property. Locals had watched these alligators grow over the years, from small 4-footed creatures into formidable predators. They were now much larger and posed a serious threat to anyone who ventured too close to the water. Residents were always cautious, keeping their pets on a leash and maintaining a respectful distance from the water's edge. That evening, the 2 alligators were mostly hidden among the bushes and reeds along the bank, but they were ever vigilant, their predatory instincts sharp. As opportunistic hunters, they were always on the lookout for an easy meal. When Marie tugged on a particularly stubborn weed, it suddenly gave way, causing her to stumble backward and fall into the water with a loud splash. Dazed and surprised, she quickly tried to right herself and climb out of the pond, kicking and splashing in her effort. But in her panic, she didn't realize the imminent danger that was silently closing in behind her. Some neighbors who witnessed Marie Wiegand's fall initially thought she had simply been walking in her garden when she suddenly collapsed. They suspected she might have suffered a medical episode, causing her to fall into the lake. Regardless of the cause, the loud splash was enough to alarm the neighbors, making them aware of the danger she was in. However, the noise also caught the attention of 2 lurking alligators. Sensing the commotion, their predatory instincts took over, and they began swimming with purpose towards her. For these opportunistic hunters, a struggling prey was an easy target. Their sharp eyes locked onto her, and with smooth, deliberate movements, they glided across the water, their powerful tails propelling them closer to the vulnerable victim. She fought back with all her strength, trying to free herself from the alligator's grip, but the massive reptiles, one measuring 8 feet 10 inches and the other 7 feet 7 inches, were far too powerful. Their bite force exceeding 2,000 psi was unrelenting. They adjusted their hold and rolled her repeatedly. The force of the attack dislocated her neck and bruised her spinal column. Within seconds, Marie was gone. Despite the harrowing nature of her final moments, the entire ordeal unfolded in less than a minute. The sheer brutality and speed of the alligator's assault were both terrifying and fatal. From across the lake, residents could see the ominous shapes of the two large alligators closing in on Rose Marie. A small bow wave in front of their rounded snouts, their dark bodies barely visible beneath the surface. They shouted at her to get out of the water, urging her to hurry. But Rose Marie, struggling to stay afloat, was already in dire trouble. The shock of the cold water had stolen her breath, making it difficult for her to keep her head above the surface. Desperately, she kicked towards the shore and reached out with her hands, trying to escape. But before she could make it, the alligator seized her. With a chilling cry, she was yanked backwards, away from the safety of dry land. The alligator's teeth tore into her flesh, their powerful jaws clamping down on her legs, as both reptiles launched their attack simultaneously. The elderly woman had no chance as she was dragged under the water. The man who saw Wiegand fall into the water was a golfer. He was playing the 6th hole and ran to help her. He tried to get her, but was unable to pull her out. The 70-year-old climbed ashore and called 911, pleading for help for the woman and himself. Other golfers made their way to the man as help arrived. He told dispatch that he believed that Wiegand was trimming weeds around the water. He did not initially see any alligators. When advised not to go in the water, he told the dispatcher, "I've already been in the water." First responders arrived at the scene and checked out the man. There is no word on his condition or identity. When the neighbors heard the commotion, they rushed over and found Rose Marie lying face down in the water. Emergency responders arrived at 8:15 p.m., but despite their efforts, she was pronounced dead at the scene. The shock of her death reverberated through the community as she tragically lost her life just steps from her own home. Her family, still grieving the loss of Edward 2 years earlier, now faced the painful reality of saying goodbye to Rose Marie. The close-knit community was profoundly affected, realizing how close such a devastating event had occurred to their homes, underscoring the hidden dangers of their otherwise peaceful surroundings. An expert trapper was brought in to capture the two alligators responsible for the attack, and they were relocated to a different area. To reassure the community, other alligators in the gated neighborhood were also removed. However, it is only a matter of time before new alligators inhabit the lakes again. Florida's tropical climate supports their thriving population, so removing one alligator simply makes space for another to move in. Annually, Florida sees about 6 or 7 unprovoked alligator attacks. Between 1948 and 2022, the Fish and Wildlife Commission, FWC, said that there were 453 unprovoked bite incidents reported. Only 26 or 5.7% of those incidents resulted in human fatality. Between 2012 and 2022, there was an average of 8 unprovoked alligator attacks reported in Florida per year that were serious enough to require professional medical treatment, according to the FWC. The likelihood of a gator attacking a Floridian is roughly 1 in 3.1 million. To reduce the chances of getting in a conflict with an alligator, the FWC recommends that residents only swim in designated swimming waters during the daylight hours, noting that gators are most active between dusk and dawn. Thank you for watching. If you want to know more shocking animal attacks, simply click on the next video. Don't miss out. Hit the subscribe button for more terrifying stories. Until next time, stay safe